Here I am following up on my last video where I talked about wanting to celebrate more discoveries and delights. Today is Wednesday, July 13th, and I'm calling this Between Silences because I am literally in between two weekend silent retreats that I'm participating in my home via online technology. And they're centered around writing practice, which I think I may have talked about here, but maybe not. But my entree to this was through Natalie Goldberg's books. And then finally in 2021, after 40 plus years of teaching only live retreats in meditation centers, she agreed to do an online version of the course, which I participated in and now am part of her community, very gratefully so. And so this coming weekend, I will be participating with her online again for the third time. And this past weekend, I participated with Upaya Zen Center and Natalie's assistant, Dorotea Mendoza, who is also reaching out into the world, sharing writing practice. And I have been physically to Upaya Zen Center once in my life. It was in December of 2008, just before I went through my big awakening / burnout / reset in my life, the gift of my life, 2009. But this was a solo trip I took for myself in December 2008. And I remember the slushy, muddy road leading up to Upaya. And I didn't even think of the possibility that the road might not be paved when I drove my rental car up there. So I only remember vague pieces of it because this was my first physical stepping into a Zen space or a meditation space or silent space. And they had an open sitting session every day at noon, I believe. This is really going just back into my memory. And I remember I had furry Ugg boots, knee-high boots. And I might have been wearing jeans, or I might have been wearing this pair of black leggings that I still have, yoga pants. And it was winter, and I just remember not knowing what to do, but it was just an hour of silence. And I sort of just followed people in. And it was that traditional sitting facing the wall. Everyone's facing the wall during this silent session. And that was my very first sitting center. And so I only remember the door, and I turned to the right and I took the first seat next to the door, and I didn't look around much in the room. And so when I saw the Zoom broadcast from Upaya in the sitting area with all of the monastics in training doing their ceremonies and chanting, I got to see that there was an altar and there were windows. There were other things in this room that I didn't take note of when I went that first time. So this morning, it was actually a couple hours ago now that it came to me to do this. So it's not literally, I'm not coming from the moment of inspiration to sit here to say it. So I'm taking a little bit of time to come back into why I wanted to sit today with the camera on and start this practice that I have in me to want to do, which is to share more about what I have discovered from teachers and from my own practice along the way. That is difficult to share in small places like Instagram or Facebook, or even in writing in my newsletter. I feel like the essence of my body and letting something come through. And I think I received I did receive a bit of encouragement to do this when I found myself this past weekend suddenly sitting there with Roshi Joan Halifax on Zoom and in the flesh, live. And it was totally unexpected. She was not billed as somebody who would come onto uh, the Zoom at all. So I wanted to read aloud a 5-minute writing I did during this weekend. That was no topic, but this is what came out, and it will hopefully be a launching point for more that I want to say about to this experience of encountering um, Roshi Joan. And I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable, so I'm not even sure this will be recording, but here I go. I love being with my bodily response to teachers ripened like Roshi Joan. Of course, she has legend status in my mind. I have a notion about her. She is famous in my mind. I noticed her hair right away, and her Patagonia vest, and her sparkling eyes and easy smile. And when she said she was 80 this year, I thought of my dad, also 80, how different he is, his mind, my comparison mind measuring, and my don't know mind registering that there are many possible ways to age and be 80. I watched her mind as she spoke and wondered with a lot of genuine curiosity what life she had lived in her body and mind to be that luminous and clear after that many years. The same calendar years on this planet my father has lived. 6 more years than my uncle got to live, 2 more than my mom. And I wanted to eat more of the kinds of experiences that fed her. So this morning now I'm remembering when I sat with this image of Roshi Joan and her long hair. She wasn't shaven anymore during COVID. She let it grow out. So I was just shocked at so many levels to see Roshi Joan in person, this famous author, famous Zen teacher, and then with her hair. And then when she said she's 80 this week, I thought this morning of the fact that that means Roshi Joan and my mother were both women in the United States coming of age during the exact same calendar years. So there was so much about the context of the greater nation that they lived in, nation state of America, in, at least from my mom's age of 22 through 80. And Roshi Joan, of course, having been born here, I believe she's American and not Canadian. But she talked about having gone to graduate school and having her first Zen teacher be a Korean teacher who would just say to her, more don't know mind, and you need to practice being more stupid. And as a graduate, as a somebody with a postgraduate degree, it just made no sense and just sort of broke her intellect to hear that, and it didn't register. And of course, what came to mind for me was my play the wrong note moment, which for me occurred at age 34. And I'm not sure how old Roshi Joan was when she started on the Zen path and became a teacher and founded Upaya Zen Center. And what I remember in my sitting this morning thinking about was how these two women, my mother, who is now would have been 80 but died when she was 78, what she experienced from growing up, coming of age, sorry, as a young adult through adulthood in this country, and the country that Roshi Joan experienced and responded to and built this community in, and of which now I feel that I am a distant little bud on a branch of a tree of this lineage that she has passed into the world and created the next generation of disciples who are carrying on rituals and traditions and taking in the teachings and doing the practice so that they become the teachers. And so I think all of this comes from the idea that I've been a I'm a junkie of teachers teaching. I'm a real aficionado of good teaching. I can really appreciate it. I love to study what makes good teaching happen. And I'm not talking about classroom teaching at all, or even lecturing or talking from a podium. I am talking about being with people in a room, creating experiences that somehow transform something and click something on through this magical combination of the voice coming through a body of a person transmitting something to other people who are attentive to it, fully receptive. And I was thinking about how in so many of our quick, 1 hour webinars or learn about this kind of informational sessions, people will share resources at the end, meaning links to read more about what they're talking about if they quote someone or reference something. And I've always found that amusing because in this case, I'm talking about Roshi Joan Halifax, who to me was just like a reputation, a name, and I had never had a direct teaching from her. I had never even listened to her audios, but she just was sort of known to me as someone. And I knew of her work with the dying. She told us more about her work with the incarcerated during the Zoom session. So when she references, for example, her work with the dying, that's not a link that you can go read more about as a resource. It's something she has done and lived and that she brings into this moment of every breath that she takes, word that she speaks is coming through that entire experience that she carries and that she has at some level integrated and some not, but it's still there with her, all of the experience, integrated and not. To call that a resource that you can go learn more about, I feel is comical. But what I take from these teachers and hearing, oh, my years of working with the dying, or my years of working with the incarcerated, or my years of living in practice community, so I'm studying and I'm taking in what is the food that fed the life of this person in a body now speaking to me these words. Where do these words come from? And so the more accurate word for me than resources is the origins. So all of us, each of us have an origin story that we may not know. More often in this country, it's not known. Um, but I am fascinated with what is the origin of true teaching that transmits something transformational when you spend time with someone with full attention on each other. It doesn't have to be just a one-way listening, but it's like a quality of attention that is transformational. What is the food of the life that enabled that person to be fully attentive and to transmit something from their experience now in language of some kind? That could be total body language, how their body is sitting in space, how they're breathing, how their voice sounds, and then the words that arrive through them. So I am fascinated with and am a continuous student of and practitioner of these ingredients as I continue to learn from many great teachers in the sense that I just described, people who have carried experiences in their bones, in their muscles, in their tissues, in their bodies, in their breath, and have chosen generously to find a form in which they can attempt to share a morsel of that with whoever shows up. And that's definitely one of my aspirations. And I've had varying levels of success in achieving all of those things, meaning finding the vehicle and the form in which what I have experienced in my life as practice can come through to other people who show up with desire and attention to put into it. And and I continue to hold that desire. And here is one way that I'm showing up. And I am also developing the courage and all of the alignment of time and space and attention and focus to put out some more offers of space to practice with me. And I think it's important for me personally just to talk about what is the teaching that I'm referring to and how is it different from school learning and academic learning and book reading, reading as learning, which a lot of people equate those things. Like if I want to learn about a subject, what is a list of books I have to read? I don't know. I think that comes from our academic, scholastic type of backgrounds, but I don't, in my recent experience, the last 13 years of my life, that's not how I view learning anymore. I have a lot of books in my possession, and I find that, and I've read many of them, but most of the true learning that I carry now in my body as in the front of what I value, learned live from experiential learning directly with teachers. And the books are there as reminders, um, or as inspiration, or just to remember that, yes, these people existed. They exist. They're here with me if I want to access their minds. But what excites me most is this process of how we learn in our bodies through presence and through our own practice alongside others who can show us what they're practicing and how. So that's my celebration of discovery. Just that little nugget of understanding what I'm talking about when I talk about teaching and sharing and learning. And this little morsel about Roshi Joan and how grateful I feel that at this point in my life, I am 46 and a half. So many of the teachers that I have studied with and then also whose books I've read are now, many of them are in their 70s and 80s and are going to be not here for very long, potentially. Um, and so I am, um, and so I am just feeling very grateful for the time that I can spend in the presence, even through Zoom, but just to feel the presence of someone's whole body speaking live, um, as if in a room. And it's actually more intimate than in a big lecture hall or even a workshop setting where you might be across the room and when seeing someone on their elevated platform. But now through a screen, there's a certain kind of intimacy there with their way of expressing themselves. So I'm very grateful to have had those few minutes with Roshi Joan. I'm so grateful for every moment I get with Natalie Goldberg online where she's agreeing to work this way and that she is able to do it. And I'm breathing it in, I'm soaking it into my body and bones. It's one of the practices that I am planning to share my own experience of what I've practiced from studying and practicing Natalie Goldberg style writing practice. I've been doing versions of it for 13 years now. But now, with this recent deep experience of working with her and understanding more deeply the benefits and the intention of the practice, it's really exciting to just keep strengthening the container for that. So, gratitude for teachers, gratitude for learning, and just a clarification on what this all means for me. Thanks for listening.